Welcome to Spirit School. My name is Danielle Sarenk, also known as the Squamish Medium. I am the host of your Spirit School, where I will share all the lessons and learnings that I have uncovered through my intuitive development and mediumship development journey. I am a professional psychic and medium, an intuitive teacher and mentor, and I look forward to walking alongside you on this journey. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me again at Spirit School. I want to thank you all again for all your kind comments on the podcast, and I'm happy that you're here to join me for another week where we're going to be discussing the full supermoon in Libra. And I'm calling this the full supermoon in Libra part 1 because we're actually going to be blessed with 2 full moon in Libras in a row. So that's very exciting stuff, and we're calling this one a supermoon because, as I mentioned on my last full moon podcast episode, which was the Virgo, is that the supermoon just means that grandmother moon is closer to Earth than a typical full moon. So that could mean emotions may be doubly heightened, or emotions may be coming to the surface even more prevalent than when she's a slightly further away. That is what I take away from that supermoon energy. So I'm going to focus these 2 episodes with the full moon in Libra. I'll explain it coming up in this episode, but this full moon, I am going to be for myself, and I only share with you what I actually do, going to be focusing on my relationship with myself. So there is a lot of different learnings and lessons that come with Libra energy, but my takeaway is relationships. And I have to say that in the past month, this has come up more in my readings than any other time of the year that I can even remember. So it kind of makes sense that we're coming into this Libran energy for 2 months in a row, and we're really being called to look at our relationships and have the opportunity through the full moon energy to release and forgive with her natural rhythm. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that today in my podcast episode. But first and foremost, the logistics. The first of the 2 full moon in Libras will take place on Wednesday, March 20th at 18:42, which is 6:42 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this is also very significant because the spring equinox actually happens about 4 hours prior to the full moon. So it's a very exciting time here on Mother Earth in the Northern Hemisphere, because today, as I record this, we are currently sitting on the last day of winter. And wow, what a winter it has been. I know a lot of people have said this winter has just kind of rocked them, has, really made them wake up to themselves. It's quite interesting. And just even this past month, this Piscean energy that we've been working with, which is the last sign in the zodiac, so the 12th sign, 12th house, and Piscean energy, as I mentioned in my new moon podcast, is really the dream or the dreamer sign. And have I ever been experiencing that? And I share everything I experience with everyone I know. It's just the way I roll. And I can't believe how many other people have come up to me saying that they have not slept. They just have the craziest dreams, the most vivid dreams. So I wonder if you experienced that as well in this past few weeks, if you've experienced more heightened dream awareness, if you recall your dreams a little bit more easy, if you've had pretty, dramatic dreams. But I know definitely that I wear a Fitbit at night, so it actually tracks my sleep patterns and how restless I am. And I am sleeping pretty darn heavy, but I am also noticing that I'm not feeling rested at all. So this week, there's a ton of significance in the air. Not only do we have, we're moving in from the Piscean, the end of the cosmic year, into Aries this week, and we're going to be coming into that new year for astrologically. But we have the spring equinox, so we're switching over from winter to spring. And spring is really a time of rebirth for our planet. After spending months of eternal reflection, with our own spirits in the winter time, the human and animal world start to emerge and take in the fresh air. And the longer longer days, and you notice it even right now with the time change we just recently had. Kids are going to bed a bit later, we're doing things a little bit later, we're wanting to spend a lot more time outdoors. I know with my Fitbit I've been hitting like over 10,000 steps every day because it's nice and warm, and you just kind of want to be outside a lot more after the internal winter that we may have had. So in that sense, the full moon is a powerful transformational shift that we will all be feeling. And it's not just because of the full moon, it's going to be because of that spring, our southern hemisphere. And I do know that I have quite a few listeners that are down in Australia and New Zealand. You'll be coming into your other equinox, which is going into fall. So I'm going to be focusing on the northern hemisphere just because that's where I'm at right now. But that's also going to be very significant this week. So as I mentioned earlier, the full moon in Libra offers us a time to look at our relationships. So as our emotional grandmother moon swells to her fullest, the emotions around our relationships will come to surface to be acknowledged and offer an opportunity for release, forgiveness, and healing. So in this first full moon of Libra, we're going to be focusing on ourselves and our relationship with ourselves, because we are really how we feel about ourselves and the relationship and connection that we have with our own soul and our own spirit is really the catalyst and the model of our external relationships with others. And I did a poll on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it's at Squamish Medium, and I'm pretty active in the stories, not so much on my feed, but in the stories I am. And I did a poll about what people wanted for my next podcast episode. Surprise, it's the full moon. But more people, I had a choice between, do you want to know about like mentorship and the mentee relationship when it comes to spiritual development, or do you want to know about that seat of intuition, that seat? And so that resounded, I think it was like 100% of people wanted to know about the seat of intuition. And that podcast episode will be coming next, I promise. But what I wanted to say first was that relationship that you have with yourself and your own spirit and your own soul is that first step to your intuitive development journey. Okay, you can't really be a medium or a psychic or an angel reader until you know what your own energy feels like. So to know what your own energy feels like, you really need to know yourself. So you need to have that self-reflection time, that self-awareness. You need to know where your emotions are. I really track my emotions absolutely in rhythm with Grandmother Moon. I talk about this book all the time on my podcast, Moonology. She has a daily diary which shows you which sign the moon is in, and because the moon rules our emotions, I'm able to actually see patterns. And I know like when Taurus is coming up, I'm bound to feel a certain way. When Cancer comes up, I'm bound to feel a certain way. So I'm able to kind of like get to know myself a lot better by living that lifestyle and by making sure that I get to know myself at a very deep level. So I know that sometimes people have a hard time sitting with themselves because there's still some healing and some thought patterns that might come up when you get that self-reflection time. And a lot of people shy away from that work. I remember being a teenager and my dad saying to me, he's like, could you imagine being a nun? Like, could you imagine sitting with yourself in silence for, most of the day? Like, I wouldn't want to be alone with my own thoughts for that long. And that's so true. It does take a special type of person that can, sit with themselves and be non-judgmental of your thoughts that come through, because I know me, before I really got onto this intuitive development journey and this mediumship development journey, the stories I would tell myself were very unkind. And that comes up a lot in my readings too. A lot of people have a hard time sitting with themselves and telling themselves a true story. So we tell ourselves sometimes a story internally from, past experiences that we've had, but we usually come at it from a place of judgment. And because we have a human experience, that judgment typically tends to lean towards that negative bias. So sometimes those internal stories that we tell ourselves when we do have time to reflect alone are unkind. So therefore we kind of shy away from it. But it's really important to sit with yourself and get to know yourself and have a really harmonious relationship with yourself, including your past experiences, including your future worries. But there's no way to get around it other than to sit with yourself and practice that non-judgmental way of talking to yourself and that way of perceiving your past experiences and how they've reflected on you today. So some of you may find that you avoid that inner work and that calling to heal and look at where you need that healing in your life. And that self-forgiveness, or you fall out of balance with serving others before you. You will find that you may be looking to others too much for their needs rather than your own. You may find it harder to make decisions for yourself or look outside of yourself for answers and decisions that you're being called to make in your life. I recently went through this too, and I'm not perfect. I may be teaching you all right now, but I'm a strong believer that you don't need to be fully healed or an expert in a subject before you start teaching people. A Course in Miracles really talks about the philosophy of to teach is to learn, and I absolutely fundamentally believe that. So because you're not fully aware of how your intuition and your own soul speaks to you, because you haven't gone through that process of sitting with yourself enough to know and be able to discern what may be coming from ego or fear versus love and soul, you'll have a harder time looking inside for the answers that you really need in life that are going to push you forward in a very positive and empowered way. You also may find that if you do spend some time with yourself, talking to yourself, so because ensuring you nurture your relationships with yourself, and it's vital for having healthy relationships in your life, you also may find that you may be unbalanced in this area if you find yourself overly concerned with external beauty of self, including your environment. And though this is not always a sign of avoidance, when it's a full moon in Libra, it's really a time to feel into if you're avoiding to look at your deeper self. So do that self-check. I know I just digressed a little bit talking about this, and I went a little bit further than I was intending to go. But you may want to check in with yourself. Do I know myself? Do I know myself? Do I have a healthy relationship with myself and my soul and my spirit? If the answer is yes, awesome. I'm so happy for you. Check in next month. But I feel like for the majority of us, we're going to say, no, I think that there's definitely room for improvement here. So I highly encourage you. I'm going to give you what I'm going to be doing as a ritual for this full moon. And again, just a reminder for me in the way that I work with Moonology, the full moon is all around releasing and forgiving, and letting those emotions come up in a very non-judgmental and forgiving way. And so this month, I'm going to be focusing on forgiving and releasing around my own relationship with myself. And then we go into the full moon next month, we're going to be looking more specifically at our relationships with external sources, external people, external situations. But this month is all about self. So I'll be spending some time this week sitting with myself in silence or taking a walk without headphones in and a podcast going, because I'm podcast obsessed, and I'm going to be taking stock of any self-doubting beliefs or self-limiting internal dialogue and unkind speaking habits that I have, and I'm going to just start journaling them. I've already been doing this because tomorrow's the full moon. I'm recording this podcast quite a few days after I originally intended, so I have been journaling all week. Just every time I have an unkind thought to myself, or anytime a self-limiting belief comes up, I write it down so that I'm prepared for my full moon work. So, you want to journal them and allow them to rise up and swell with Grandmother Moon's energy. And you have a beauty of an opportunity to face and release this most important work on self-forgiveness. So I'm going to link this article that I'm about to reference in the show notes. And it was on Clouds and Dirt, which is the, High Vibe Tribe blog that I am a contributor to, but I did not write this article, and I'd never heard of this practice before. But when I heard it, my soul literally sang. There's so many things that I could give you to do, or that rituals that you've done in different places, and they're neat to do for sure, but you'll know a ritual really hits you in that soul spot. You will know. And this was one of the practices, a spiritual practice that I was completely unaware of. And when I put it into practice, my soul resonated with it at an extremely deep level. So I'm trusting the universe that they got me to talk about this today, the world of spirit, because I know that many people listening will resonate with this practice. Okay, so this practice is a Hawaiian indigenous healing practice. It's shamanic in nature. I'm about to butcher the name, I know I am, but it's Ho'oponopono. So Ho'oponopono. And the premise of it is around making it right, to make it right. And when I was doing research on it and I was reading this article that I'll link, our indigenous tribes in Hawaii would use this practice with one another on how to resolve issues in the family or in the tribe, and use it on themselves as well, because sometimes we are more unkind to ourselves than we are to other people. So the practice really is simple. It's the phrase that you say, it's like a mantra that you say where it's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. So just sit with that for a second. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And this is something that I've only used for myself as an internal healing process. And it is so powerful. So I've been journaling all week, all these self-limiting beliefs and internal dialogues and thoughts that I have around myself that are not very healthy relationship. Like if I were to say these things to my husband, we would have an incredibly unhealthy relationship. So anything that you got kind of like going on in your own spirit, your own mind, and if you were to like socialize it out loud to like your mother, your children, whatever your closest relationship is, how do you think they would feel? That's the perception that we really need to look at when we're trying to come up with this list, right? So gather your list, do it, light a candle with the full moon. Think of all the triggery things that come up, all the times that you feel like you start to doubt yourself, and start writing them down. And I would make a list, we don't want to be too overwhelmed. So maybe come up with like 6 phrases or 6 beliefs or 6 things that you tell yourself. Maybe do between like 3 and 10. I wouldn't go above 10 because you don't want to murky the energy of it. But what I'm going to be doing is writing down my list of 6. I have 6. That's going to keep coming up with that number. And I'm going to say them out loud. And then I'm going to say, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I'm going to repeat that phrase after every self-limiting or unkind thing that I tell myself. And then when I am done with my list, I'm going to repeat that phrase. I love you. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Until my soul feels like I should stop. And that saying is so high vibe and so healing in nature that I know it is going to shift energy for every single person that tries it. So I'm not going to go too deep into the practice because I'm not an expert in it. I'm basically telling you what I know and no more. I'm not going to be fake or inauthentic and pretend like I know more than I do. I don't. So I will link that article. So if you have an interest in the practice, definitely read it. But this is what I'm doing this full moon. I'm not burning anything like I typically do. I kid you not. Anyone can do rituals and ceremony. You just need to feel into that inspiration. And this is what came up to me from spirit this full moon. So there you have it. This is your episode for this week, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that what I offer you on behalf of spirit for this full moon in Libra, self-healing, reflection, philosophy, and exercise will resonate with you all. So thank you for listening this week, and I'll be back next week with another episode.